World War I claimed around 40 million lives. People younger than you and I had to experience things that we couldn't even imagine, and we get a little taste of it thanks to the World War I game series and the new game Isonzo. We'll be fighting in Italy with the Austro-Hungarians, and if I could describe Isonzo with one word, it would be chaos. And atmospheric. I couldn't decide before scripting the video, but compared to the previous games in the World War I series, this game makes me feel like I'm experiencing a cinematic cutscene at times, and whilst playing it, I can't help but look at my surroundings and admire what the devs have done. And in this video, I'm gonna tell you whether it's worth your hard-earned money as well as your precious time, all whilst comparing it to the past games in the series and other games that I know you guys play. I will say that I did receive this game for free, but that won't skew my opinion because I genuinely like this game, and regardless I would have bought it anyways. But what is Isonzo? It is a tactical shooter that focuses on the southern front of World War I, which involves the Italians and Austro-Hungarians, so yes, there's only two factions in the game, which is significantly less than the previous games. But they have their historically accurate weapons and uniforms, and the class system is a lot more simpler in my opinion, because each team can have a select amount of people occupy the roles, and within these roles, only a certain amount of people can claim certain things, such as scoped weaponry. But I see people complain there's no point to the recon class if they can't use the sniper rifles with the scope, but I'm okay with it because it gets people to use the other strengths of the class, and as also someone who has a prejudice towards sniper rifles, especially in Counter-Strike, I'm not gonna lose too much sleep over this. But in certain situations, sniper rifles do have a pretty significant advantage because especially if you're in a defending team and you're sitting up on a hill, you can basically see the whole entire battlefield and get easy picks. But I want to talk about a very important aspect, and that is the gun handling and speed of gameplay and how it compares to other games such as Tannenberg, where you could basically b-hop around the map and hit people with decent accuracy as well as be able to cancel reloads. But the gameplay in Isonzo is significantly slower, and I thank them for that. They've done this by making you not run around as quickly, but also through the gun handling, and at first I didn't like it. It felt wet, like it felt floppy, awkward, damp, whatever you want to call it. It just had a weird feeling to it, but I believe that this was intentional, and it's also why I like it, because lifting up a gun, especially a long looking stick like this, it's not going to be easy to aim, or going from a sprint to ADS is a whole process in of itself, and I can't imagine in real life having a gun as long and heavy as this is easy to control in the hands, especially if it's a child that could potentially be using it, because this is World War I after all. Which, yeah, I like to do a bit of role playing when I play these types of games, and yeah, I'm a 12-year-old child who faked the rage to get enlisted, so if you kill me, you just murdered a child. But in all seriousness, there's a lot of recoil added to the guns, and they mostly kill in 1 or 2 hits. But in regards to the maps, they are long in length, and the games do go on for a while, but you are condensed into certain sections where you have to either defend, capture, or destroy certain things, and in my opinion, you'll never be bored playing this game. And I've said this plenty of times as someone who prefers more fastish in terms of tactical shooters such as RS2 compared to slower games such as Armored Squad. This game really does scratch my itch, and I'm very thankful for it. But it also doesn't feel as disorganized as Tannenberg. It's a little bit more structured, but more on the communication later. But I want to talk about another thing that I like about it, and that is the class system. And we'll start off with officers, and their abilities compared to previous games are significantly buffed, and there's a lot more variety, and this is also why I call this game a cinematic cutscene simulator, because while you see the return of some weak artillery strikes, you can call in full-on strafe bombing runs and heavy barrages that make you feel vulnerable as you cower in a trench or in the corner of a point. It makes you sit there and just enjoy the show, and when you couple this with the gore mechanics where half your face gets melted off and you can hear your comrades just screaming in pain, and you also add on the experience of bandaging up your teammate and have them explode right in front of you, this really does create this sort of PTSD PTSD simulator type game. But a quick little fun fact about my grandpa: during the Greek Civil War, he went to take a piss, and his friend and donkey were bombed to shithouse, so people in real life have seen shit like this happen, and I can't imagine what it's like to live with a memory like that. And there's constant artillery and explosions going off, and it's just ridiculous at times in my opinion. And I can't speak on the historically accurate point of view, but I did watch some World War I footage, footage, and I mean, I don't know, this does look pretty believable, but we do see the return of the triple threat, the spicy gas. If you don't put on your mask in time, your guy will slowly choke and fall to the ground, and he reaches up to the sky. It's pretty chilling, but going more into the class system, I feel like I play a lot more to their strengths as opposed to seeing them as a different way to get different types of weapons and whatnot. The officer class is heaps of fun, just sitting in the back of the map, acting as sort of like a commander, trying to coordinate the team, as well as call in artillery strikes that can completely obliterate an objective. But I also did find it kind of boring sitting in the back of the map next to a radio, and most of the time, people didn't really listen to my orders. However, this is probably an Asia server thing, which is a problem in a lot of other games, so I don't know how it is in America as well as Europe. But we have other classes that include the Rifleman, which is your standard, you get a gun and rush towards the enemy and hope you don't die. You can also unlock grenades, which are extremely powerful, as well as better weapons. But the specialist roles are more fun, since as an engineer, you can completely cut off pathways by building barbed wire, as well as be able to build things faster. This is a great class when playing on the defending side, and don't do what I did and build these near spawn, because you can kill your teammates with them. It's pretty much common sense, but common sense doesn't really apply to me because I can really surprise people at just how incompetent I can be. But moving on to the assault class, and for those who did not like the amount of automatic weapons or even semi-automatic weapons in Battlefield 1, this is the only class that can use automatic weapons such as LMGs, and only a certain amount of people that use the class can actually equip them, and they are extremely inaccurate unless you find a place to mount the bipod. But my favorite class that people don't really seem to choose simply because of its gameplay style, and that is the Mountaineer, who specializes in spotting the enemy. The flare gun is not only able to act as a marker for commanders to call in strikes, but it can light up a whole point of enemy, and you can rack up some insane amounts of points. And when you use the periscope, it's actually a lot more fun than it seems, sitting in a trench or far from the battlefield and just spotting the enemy over and over again and making it easier for your team to hit them. I feel like not everyone uses these things because people will rather go off and get kills, which I can't really blame them, but one dedicated observer can make or break an attack, and it can also make it so much easier. And we also have the marksman class if you want to be Chris Kyle in World War I. But there are a couple of questions that I want to answer, and the first being, is it worth your money? And I'd say yes. You have a decent amount of things to grind for, and you can change up the way a class plays, such as, do you want to be able to plant bombs quicker, or do you want to move faster, spot enemies faster, heal faster, which I don't really think is worth it because the healing is pretty fast anyways. You can give your class many different purposes compared to past games in terms of graphics, atmosphere, maybe not in terms of faction differences since there are only two. There's just so much more to the game, and this is also why I hope this game doesn't die like the previous ones. There are bots that fill up the server, but you know, nothing beats the real thing. I also need to mention one important thing. If you are Australian and you use Optus internet, such as myself, please don't DDoS me. There is some server issues, and I contacted the devs and they're working on something, but basically the servers are located in Melbourne, which is the city that I live in, and it gives me 360 ping because the way, I'm not a network specialist, but they route it incorrectly, and the devs have tried to contact Optus, but basically Optus, of course, being Optus, said that, oh yeah, you're not a customer, there's really nothing we can do about it, and other people have tried to contact Optus, and they basically said, oh, just use a VPN. But that's not a good workaround in my opinion. You should be able to play the game as it's intended, and if the internet provider, of course it's Optus, I'm not even surprised. Of all the internet service providers, it's not TPG, it's not Dodo, it's not even Telstra, it's of course it's Optus. I'm not surprised, and of course the fucking support, being as shitty as it is giving them the cold shoulder. I'm not surprised, honestly, but if you are Australian and you use Optus, be wary of that. I hope this problem does get resolved though. But anyways, I'm going to end today's video there. If you did like today's video, please do consider leaving a like, subscribing, sharing the video with your friends. Anyways, my name is Tan2, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.